Welcome to POP Podcast.
Great to be here.
And hey, you've joined us at a pretty interesting time on the calendar.
Yeah, definitely.
This Sunday, April 13th, 2025. It's kind of rare, right? Both Passover and Easter on the same day.
It really is a big overlap.
So, knowing that, maybe you caught last night's Saturday Night Live. Aired Saturday, April 12th. We did.
Oh, yeah.
And the cold open, well, it felt pretty timely, wouldn't you say?
It really did. You know, SNL, it's always this fascinating cultural barometer, isn't it? How they tackle these big moments.
Especially when you get that mix, like major religious holidays and, well, the constant hum of politics.
Right. It makes you kind of wonder what angle they're going for, what commentary they're trying to make.
Exactly. And this episode, it was John Hamm hosting again.
Fourth time, right?
Fourth time, which is wild. But even wilder, it's been 15 years since his last one.
Wow, has it been that long? Time flies.
Seriously. And Lizzo was the musical guest, still bad singer, great energy. But for our deep dive today, we're really focusing in, laser focus on that cold open. It just jumped right into a religious setting, which, immediately grabs your attention.
Yeah, it opened with Mikey Day as Jesus. And it was that classic scene, the cleansing of the temple.
Right.
He's got that that familiar righteous anger, railing against the merchants, the money changers, saying they're corrupting the sacred space.
It's such a well-known story, isn't it, from the Bible?
Yeah.
So you kind of settle in, you think you know where it's headed.
You do. You think, okay, all right, straightforward religious satire, maybe.
But then, SNL does what SNL does, that curveball.
Damn, exactly.
Suddenly there he is, Donald Jesus Trump, played by James Austin Johnson.
And the line.
The line that just makes you kind of, blink. Trump saying he prays so much they call me predator.
It's just such an immediate collision, right? These two totally different worlds smashing together. Unexpected, definitely.
It's that jolt, isn't it? That stark contrast. That's where the humor or maybe the discomfort comes from.
Yeah, that juxtaposition. You have this deeply ingrained image of, religious sanctity.
Mm-hmm.
And then this very specific, very loaded phrase that's just become so tied to a particular political figure. It really makes you stop and think, what are they highlighting here about everything right now?
Okay, so let's dig into what happened next, because it wasn't just a quick gag.
No, not at all.
Trump's character, he really takes over, starts commenting on current events, and it feels very characteristic, The way he talks about harsh tariffs and the plummeting stock market.
Right, and then he drops that line about, I also got rid of money last week, but instead of one temple, I did a whole country, maybe even the globe.
It's that huge exaggeration, that massive sense of self-importance applied to, economic policy.
Yeah.
It almost feels like they're playing with a certain perception people might have of his impact, but just cranking it up to 11, to the point of absurdity.
And what's fascinating there, I think, is how they draw this parallel, even though it's totally ridiculous, between Jesus's act in the temple, which had this clear moral, spiritual drive,
Right.
and Trump's economic policies, which are, complex, debated, very secular.
It's a satirical move, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of poks you to think about the impact, maybe the motivations behind both, but without really, saying this is good or this is bad.
Exactly. It's more about getting a reaction, prompting that thought.
And it didn't stop there. He pivots again, this time to the stock market.
Oh, yeah, the doing a Jesus line.
Saying that Jesus, after his financial back and forth, and he explains it it died, then on the third day, it was risen.
But then he adds.
And then on the fourth day, it died again, possibly never to return, just like Jesus. It's so dark and kind of cynical, right, about economic ups and downs framed in this religious way.
It makes you a little uncomfortable, maybe, but it also makes you think.
It does.
And using that religious language for something so, secular and, frankly, unpredictable like the economy, it kind of highlights how we try to find patterns, right? Find meaning in chaos.
Even if the comparison feels a bit off or irreverent.
Exactly. It makes you think about the language we reach for to explain things we don't fully get.
Okay, quick pause here. If you're finding this breakdown interesting, maybe hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely helps us out.
So anyway, after the stock market bit, he takes another sharp turn. Easter.
Right. And his description.
Describing it as the day where the most homophobic people tried to dress as gay as possible.
Wow. That's a really pointed observation, isn't it? Provocative.
Huh?
About the performative side of some holiday stuff.
It's the kind of line that definitely gets people talking. Maybe even makes you think about, I don't know, potential hypocrisy.
Yeah, it really cuts into some societal tensions, I think.
Yeah.
It's commentary on that potential gap, right, between how people act or celebrate on the outside and maybe what they believe or do otherwise.
Raises questions about authenticity, social expectations, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, through all this Trump monologue, something else was happening that was really noticeable.
The other actors.
Yeah. Mikey Day as Jesus, Egon Olgrodum, Sarah Sherman, the whole cast in their biblical gear.
Mm.
They were basically just frozen behind him.
Just stuck there.
And Johnson's Trump totally leaned into it. He started breaking the fourth wall, talking to them, making fun of them.
Calling out Mikey Day as great clips.
Yeah.
Right?
And commenting on Ego and Sarah Sherman, saying something like, look at Sarah Sherman stuck with her mouth open back there. Bad choice. It was meta.
That breaking the fourth wall adds this whole other layer, doesn't it? It's like the Trump character knows it's a sketch.
Right.
And he's messing with the performers, blurring the lines between the scene and, like, the reality of live TV.
And you could almost see the other actors trying not to laugh. That slight discomfort becomes part of the comedy itself.
Totally. It's a really clever technique, actually. It pulls you in differently.
And then, Kenan Thompson, after Trump calls him out,
He does the walk-off.
he does the walk-off troll, which felt like it was aimed at Morgan Wallen, who wasn't even there.
Yeah, it was this deep cut, right? A meta joke playing on past SNL stuff, like the Wallen incident.
It totally rewards you if you're a regular viewer, if you know the show's recent history.
Exactly. It's that self-referential humor SNL loves to do. For longtime viewers, it's like these little Easter eggs, these callbacks. Makes it funnier if you're in on the joke.
So, just to kind of wrap up the sketch itself.
Yep.
Starts religious, gets hijacked by Trump, outlandish claims about tariffs, the stock market doing a Jesus, his take on Easter.
Plus the fourth wall breaking and Kenan's signature exit.
All happening with Passover and Easter literally the next day.
Yeah. And that juxtaposition, it's really something to think about, isn't it? The solemnity, the meaning of the holidays, smashed up against SNL's sharp, often irreverent humor. What does that clash tell us about how we, navigate all these different parts of our culture?
Which really leads to the bigger picture, right? The cultural relevance of SNL's political satire.
For sure.
I mean, for decades, this show's been this kind of, unpredictable mirror, reflecting current events using humor, often really pointed humor, to comment on politics, society.
And this cold open feels like a perfect example of that, especially when culture and politics collide around holidays.
It brings up that question, what role does humor play? How does satire, even when it's about sensitive stuff like religion and politics, help us process things?
Does it offer release, a way to laugh at the absurdity? Or does it sometimes maybe risk dividing people more? It's a tricky balance.
It is.
Yeah.
But you got to consider how humor, even politically charged humor, can act as commentary, like this sketch throwing religion, holidays, and Trump-specific style together.
Yeah.
It forces you to reflect on the cultural moment, doesn't it? That unexpected mix of ideas can be really, really thought-provoking.
Precisely. That collision, sacred, profane, serious, absurd. That's often what makes SNL's political stuff stick with you. Sometimes makes it controversial, too. What part of that contrast really stood out to you?
So maybe as folks are, doing their Easter egg hunts or having Cedar, maybe take a second to think about how humor, even from SNL, shapes how we see things.
Yeah.
It often highlights tensions and viewpoints in a way that, say, straight news might not capture.
Indeed. It's a good reminder that even during celebration or reflection, politics and culture are always there, always churning. And satire, it can be a surprisingly sharp tool for looking at them. What's a takeaway from this particular comedic snapshot for you, maybe?
Well, that's our deep dive for today. We hope looking at this SNL cold open was insightful, maybe gave you something new to chew on during the holidays.
Hope so.
And if you enjoyed it, please, again, take that moment to like and subscribe. It really helps people find the show. You won't miss what we dive into next.
And maybe just reflect on how different kinds of media, even comedy sketches, add to how we understand really complex issues. It's not always about finding neat answers.
Right. Sometimes it's just about sparking a new way of looking at things.
Exactly.
It's all about digging a little deeper. So on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
And one last time, like and subscribe for more. Catch you next time.